Hello and welcome to today's webinar program from the UChicago Space Network and the Alumni Careers Program. My name is Joshua Levitt. I am a college alumnus, class of 2010, and I work with the UChicago Alumni Career Programs team here at the University of Chicago in Hyde Park. Thank you for joining us today. Our goal is to create resources and programming to help you grow in your career. Maybe that will be in the aerospace industry, and certainly dovetails with really my most space-themed t-shirts. This alien who says, I don't know what to do with my life. Maybe that will involve the aerospace industry in some way. Today, we will hear from Dave Fisher and Ian Mccann, our leaders from the UChicago Space Network, and they'll tell us a little bit about their vision and introduce our inaugural speakers. Dave, over to you.
Hey, Josh, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Fisher. I am also a college alumnus, physics back in 1987, and I've been able to have the honor of spending most of my career in the space industry. One of the things that struck me and several other Maroons was that there's a lot of people from Chicago who are engaged in the space industry or want to be engaged in the space industry, didn't really have a way to communicate with each other. So we teamed up with the university about a year ago. We officially kicked off this group called the University of Chicago Space Network. Its goal is simple. We want to connect alumni from any part of the university. We want to connect current students at the university, anybody who's interested in the space industry, just as a way to connect, a way to network, a way to help each other out. And so that's the point of the University of Chicago Space Network. We are just getting off the ground. Like I said, we got put together about a year ago, and we've had a couple of events. This one is our inaugural Space Talk event, and we've got some great speakers to share with you today. To talk about that, I want to hand it over to our VP for events, Ian Mccann, who has put all of this together for us. Ian, over to you.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, I am also an alumnus of the college. Geo, Sci, and Bio 2019. I am the VP for events for the Chicago Space Network, and I conceived of this monthly Space Talk series for everyone involved in, whether from the university or involved with the university, friends, family, alumni, to hear about various startups, organizations, research opportunities, or any other plans that may concern UChicago and space. And this is the first session of this talk set series, and it is the first of what will hopefully turn into a very grand, a very wonderful resource for alumni and friends to attend month after month. And today we have Holly Highfill and Kishen Raghunath from Slingshot Aerospace, a company dedicated to bringing digital simulations to the aerospace realm. And they will be talking about Slingshot for the next hour. And I just wanted to hand it off to all of them, to talk about this. So over to you, Holly and Kishen.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ian. Why don't we go ahead and do a little bit of introduction, and then Kishen, happy to give some background after you want to give a little intro into what Slingshot is.
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Kishen Raghunath, as Ian mentioned. So just a quick background on Slingshot, then we can go into some intros on ourselves. But Slingshot is a space sustainability company. We're working with satellite owner operators, the governments, to keep space safe, sustainable, and clean for future generations through our software products. We've got two products, we've got three main products that we've brought to the market so far. We're a Series A company. We just recently raised a new fundraising round. We did 2 acquisitions. And the way Holly and I got introduced to Slingshot was via acquisition. So our company was acquired out of the University of Chicago middle of last year. And Holly and I have been part of Slingshot for over a year now. And Holly, you want to get into the story of how that happened and maybe some background?
Yeah, before you I'll do that once you tell everybody what your role is.
Oh, yeah, sorry. My role at Slingshot, I'm Director of Corporate Development. Yeah.
Awesome. So great. Thanks, Kishen. So what Kishen didn't tell you is that not only did he help with the Stellatus acquisition, which was the company born out of UChicago that we founded. Yes, he is also extremely involved in our fundraising activities. And I like to remind people that less than a year out of graduating from Booth, Kishen sold his own startup and then has done multiple rounds of fundraising and acquired 2 companies at the same time for Slingshot Aerospace. So if you're interested in getting into the industry, Kishen's a really great example of someone who has dove right in, and there's a lot of opportunity to learn here. There's a lot of opportunity for growth, and the industry is just moving in super exciting ways. And I'm proud of Slingshot and our team because I'm biased, but I think that we're in the forefront of leading those efforts to transform the space into something that's sustainable, but also bring the industry to the commercial market and really to humans in general when space has been kind of out of grasp, no pun intended, but there's going to be lots of puns today, guys. So my name's Holly. I'm Director of Customer Engagement and Strategy here at Slingshot. So Kishen works on the corp dev side. I work on our commercial sales team. So Slingshot is really broken into 2 main houses. Like Kishen said, we work closely with the government. This is definitely still an industry that has a heavy government influence, right? The Space Force was created a few years ago. And so a lot of our R&D projects and a massive amount of funding comes from that space. But then it also gives us the opportunity then to take those contracts and be able to develop tools for the commercial industry, which, as if any of you guys have read in any space news article, any market research, the industry is just absolutely booming right now. And so we're at an interesting inflection point where there's massive growth and the opportunity to really bring in commercial industry to transform the space into really something that we won't even be able to anticipate. I think the environment is changing every single day. Capabilities are advancing at a rate that none of us have anticipated, but it's awesome for those of us that are trying to make a difference. And so I work closely with all of our commercial customers, which is mainly satellite operators. So today I work with our large and small accounts. Many of the relationships started though when I was a student at UChicago. And so I'll give you guys a little bit of a background on that, since I think the main takeaway from my point here is that everybody who's attending this call right now is extremely well positioned to talk to industry leaders who are willing to answer your emails, given your special status as a student or a graduate student who's looking to learn. So I'm going to pause there, but Kishen, if I've left anything out, I'm happy to talk about the background of our Stellatus, of founding Stellatus, and then our subsequent acquisition, and then we can go in and talk to kind of what we're doing at Slingshot and what Slingshot's doing now. Anything on your end, Kishen? That was directed at you.
No, I think that's good.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. So Josh, do you want me to just give a little bit of background on our Stellatus founding and how it was acquired?
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely, I think everyone who registered and some who submitted questions beforehand really want to hear how your experience at UChicago led you into this field.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think you said it earlier, but if anyone wants to raise their hands or ask questions, feel free. Would love to help to answer any questions and those that were in my position not a short while ago. So let's see. I believe that it was fall of 2020, but correct me if I'm wrong, Kishen, on any of the dates. It's hard to keep track, but it was fall 2020, and Kishen and I had never met each other before. We both signed on to a Zoom. It was the middle of the pandemic, and there was a new course that was being offered at the University of Chicago. It was called Hacking for Defense. This program started at Stanford University, and it is a program that is sponsored by the Department of Defense, and it basically pairs students from both undergrad and graduate school across different departments at universities to solve really hard problems posed by individual coaches, or I think they're called sponsors at the DoD. So there's many different problems that the government is facing. They bring a few of those, and we just happened to have the space team project at UChicago. So a lot of our success really, I think, has to do with fate at the end of the day. Audrey Schaefer, she was our sponsor. She was director of space policy for the Department of Defense. Now she is director of space policy for the White House's National Security Council. And she was paired with our team. There were a few others. I think there was the Pants team was another one that I loved, and they were helping to solve the military stockpile issues. But our team was focused on how to resolve the coordination problem among satellite operators in space. So we hopped on a Zoom one day. I think our team was about 5 of us at the time. And then our 2 professors were Todd Henderson. He is a law school professor here at the university. And then Will Gosson. He is a professor, and I believe that he works out of the Polsky Center, which I will shamelessly plug probably about 50 times by the end of this call. And so both of them ran the course, and we worked for Audrey, and Audrey came to us and said, look, guys, there are no efficient and scalable ways for satellite operators to be able to coordinate and resolve potential collisions in space. So she gave us the problem statement, and I think that's really important. We were lucky in that respect, because when you're founding a company, to be able to be handed, a clear problem statement from somebody who's an expert in the industry, you can't start better than that. So I think a difficulty with many startups is creating a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. We were really lucky because Audrey knew of the problem, and she was able to really explain it to us and then connect us with industry folks that we could do discovery on even further. So the way that the course was structured was Todd and Will brought a spin to it, right? Many times Hacking for Defense is you do a 2-month course, you do a lot of market research, your sponsor puts you in touch with other experts in the industry, and you draft a paper. But Will and Todd were adamant that whatever solution we came up with, we had to think of it in a way that we could create and commercialize this, and found a startup that would be positioned to solve this problem for the government or any other potential customers that were affected. And so that was the lens that UChicago uniquely put on the Hacking for Defense program, which I really hope that other universities take, because it makes you think in a different way. You're not writing a research paper and having, been in my last year of law school, there's a lot of that. So having to be vulnerable and figure out, okay, this isn't just a problem I'm telling somebody else to solve, but like, this is a problem where if I were to put my life savings on it, stop going to a law firm, is this something that I actually think is viable, right? That I would actually stand behind? That was the perspective that was put upon us in the Hacking for Defense course. And I think it made all the difference. So we did 2 months of research. Audrey put us in touch with commercial operators. She put us in touch with individuals at NASA, within the Department of Defense. Kishen, I, and our other team members then just did hours and hours of discovery. I actually love Zoom. I think it is amazing. I had been part of the George Shultz Innovation Fund as an innovation fund associate, and we still kind of thought it was important to go meet in person, but it prevented us from talking to so many individuals because, well, we were going to ask the GSIF for a couple $1,000s to pay for our flights everywhere. And so I think Zoom actually provides people with an awesome opportunity to connect with anybody around the world. You just may have to stay up, until 9 p.m. to take a call from somewhere in Asia, which I now have to do all the time. So yeah, we did market research. We developed a business case for it, and we realized that the entire market, not just the DoD, is affected by this coordination problem. So today, satellite operators, the United States government has radar tracking capabilities, and they provide a tremendous service to the world. They built these radar capabilities to track their own satellites, NASA satellites, government mission satellites, but then as space became more commercialized, they've ended up basically tracking the world's satellites and the tens of thousands of pieces of debris and providing positional information and high risk alerts for free. But with any government organization, right, whose mission was not to provide this commercial service, it's facing operators are facing challenges leveraging that legacy system. And so we tried to figure out, okay, how can we leverage the incredible data set that's being generated by the government, but it's being given to operators by email. Right? They're given this data by email. They have no internal tools unless they spend a lot of in-house dollars. Many startups don't have that as well, specifically because space safety is just not a revenue generating part of their business, right? A lot of dollars go into things that are actually going to generate revenue for your mission. Space safety isn't one of them, even though it's absolutely paramount to the success of that mission and the industry as a whole. It's something that operators are wanting off-the-shelf solutions for, which was great for us. So they're ingesting those emails, and then they don't have an easy way to get in touch with each other, right? They don't have contact information in many cases, right? This is an international multi-sector industry with operators all around the world, universities that may have one CubeSat, and it's hard to get in touch. And then it's also hard to plan and coordinate and exchange data when it's in different formats, and operators may not necessarily have the in-house tools to analyze that data, coordinate effectively. And then one side may or may not even have propulsion capabilities. And so they may not even be able to move. So this really is a coordination problem. This is a data sharing issue. And Kishen and I, well, he has an aerospace background, I do not, realized that this was something that if we did enough industry research, right, and paired with folks that were software engineers and astrodynamicists, which was a huge decision for us to join the Slingshot team, that this was also a problem that even a layman like myself, I thought, hey, this is about understanding the industry, knowing the customers and their needs. And so despite not having that traditional aerospace background, I was an English major in undergrad, that this was something that I felt like I could take the helm leading alongside Kishen to solve. So we built a business case, and then we decided, hey, we need a little bit more time for customer discovery. So then we leveraged a host of UChicago resources up until the point that we started negotiating the acquisition with Slingshot. So after we finished this research with Hacking for Defense, built the general business case, there needs to be a platform for operators, every single one of them, to get on, to coordinate, to exchange data, right, and effectively manage these high-risk collisions. We then wanted to talk to more individuals and actually run this through an accelerator program. So during the winter of 2021, we were part of the National Science Foundation's I-Core program, which gave us a little bit of funding and the ability to do more customer discovery. And then we were accepted into the New Venture Challenge, where we really were put through a rigorous test. And I suggest for any of you, even if you feel that your company is not fully fledged, start applying to the New Venture Challenge. It was absolutely incredible. Steve Kaplan, Waverly Deutsch, all of the board members that are typically VCs that come in and help coach. It's just an unbelievable amount of free resources. And then on top of that, UChicago's Innovation Clinic, Emily Underwood is the professor there. She also can help you draft your articles of incorporation, your bylaws, your equity documentation, etc. So there's just so many resources here for customer discovery, to build your business case, and then also get your legal documents together. So you're in a really good spot as you take off from the university and may try to start this on your own. So we leveraged all of those resources, built the business case, and had months worth of customer discovery. And then we were put in touch with Slingshot, but I think I'll probably pause there, since I know that was a long one without pause, guys.
It was a very rich portrait, tapestry.
Okay,
Well, all the threads you weave through that tapestry, including the English major in me feels particularly inspired by your humanities background. The fact that you went from English in undergrad through a law degree here at UChicago, and then from there into aerospace around that same time. So thank you.
Yeah, it's really the space, right? The space industry generally is open for disruption. And I think it's not about what your background skill set is. It is all about the amount of time and passion that you want to put into the exercise. I know that your background is not a prerequisite necessarily for many of the positions at our company. It really is about the passion, the desire to solve a problem. And there's also just so much about the space industry that's currently unknown, and having the diversity of perspective, I think, is really important. I will be real with you. I did focus on science fiction. When
That's
I was
perfect.
but I really don't think that counts. But yeah, I actually I went to a city college before going to UCLA, and I took an astronomy course, and I was super interested. This was at the height of kind of SpaceX. I didn't know what the Jet Propulsion Laboratory was until then, and I was so passionate about it. But I also, took nothing more than a statistics class, and thought, if I'm ever going to get to work at SpaceX, it better, it's going to be as an attorney working on contracts. But I'm really glad it didn't pan out that way, because this is way more fun. So yeah, I think takeaway is use University of Chicago's resources, and you can have any background you want to get into the space industry. There's absolutely no barrier.
It's so multidisciplinary. That's really why I'm drawn to the work of the Chicago Space Network and the sort of experiences and enterprises that you two are bringing on. Kishen, how did you tell us about your trajectory through the MBA and then into Slingshot Aerospace?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, as Holly mentioned, I had a traditional aerospace background. So ever since I was a child, I wanted to go into space. I applied for the Naval Academy. My eyesight was really terrible, and so I didn't end up going down the fighter pilot astronaut route. But went to Georgia Tech undergrad, did a bachelor's and master's in aerospace engineering. I worked at the U.S. Air Force for a little bit, and then at Lockheed Martin. I was working on the Artemis program, which will hopefully, the Orion program, which will hopefully launch here in a couple of weeks. It'd be great to see that go around the moon. Wanted to get more on the business side of things, joined UChicago in 2018. But yeah, I mean, coming out of UChicago, I thought I was not going to go back into aerospace, maybe go into consulting or something different. But as Holly sort of talked about, we took this Hacking for Defense program, and it was definitely a roller coaster, and was really glad to come back into the aerospace field again, utilize some of the knowledge that I had gained through the years, as well as the great classes, entrepreneurship through acquisition, entrepreneurial finance, really pivotal actually on the founder side, and raising money. Steve Kaplan and the other professors teaching those sort of courses were actually really pivotal, and was able to take those lessons and really use them through selling our company and then helping Slingshot raise a couple rounds of fundraising.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you again for really creating this just this intricate tapestry on what really this sort of work looks like. So I guess one or kind of a corollary question, what would you say is a preconception about the aerospace industry that has not quite rung true in your experience, and what preconception does ring true in your experience?
You go first.
Go ahead, Kishen, and then Holly will tell us about the sci-fi that is.
Yeah, so I guess something. So well, I mean, I think what Holly said before about not needing an aerospace background. I mean, I think that I've seen that change quite a bit, and especially with Holly's experience, our experience getting acquired, just the new age new space sort of startups, building in those new perspectives and actually commercializing space now. I think anybody can be part of the aerospace industry. We've seen that firsthand, and yeah, definitely just does not ring true anymore. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to be part of the space industry. Holly, I'll let you answer the other one.
Don't worry, I got it. Yeah, so I think one that it's not necessary, but has definitely been a learning curve for me. Probably maybe similar for you, Kishen, although you did work for Lockheed, so you probably had a little more experience. There's still a huge government and military influence in the space. And so I knew nothing about the government procurement process. I sort of knew what an SBIR was because I'd worked for the Innovation Fund, and a lot of, the UChicago born deep tech startups leverage those. But when it comes to how contracts are dropped by the government, how you bid on those contracts, just all of the language, like this industry is filled with acronyms. All right. And some things have, there's the same acronym for two totally different things. And unless you've been working in the industry for a while, you don't pick up that, you could be using the same two in the same sentence and you don't know which one they're talking about. So I think, honestly, just doing a little bit of research and understanding every startup that we've, interacted with has some sort of team that's looking for government dollars, right? I know Dave, Astroscale has had a massive amount of success, and a lot of R&D work comes from contracts, not only from the US government, but from organizations like JAXA, the Japanese space agency. So it's international, and it's absolutely vital to a startup to make sure that you have continued runway. So being able to learn a little bit about the government procurement process probably will help you just in your early days, since it was a really crazy learning curve for me. We're lucky at Slingshot because our whole company is just filled with lifelong learners. I honestly feel like that is the thread running through anyone I've ever met in the industry or interested is wanting to learn more. So I've gotten to learn a lot internally from that team and our astrodynamics team, but understanding the government procurement process, that's definitely something that you could spend a little bit of time on Wikipedia. That would give you just some of the language and understanding what the federal teams go through and how the government works with industry today. And then it's also great because, even that is changing as well. Our company just acquired the space division of Numerica Corporation. They are an optical ground-based telescope network, and they track space objects from LEO, which is low Earth orbit, all the way out to cislunar. and they're a commercial third-party data source, right? The way that the government is treating commercial third-party data sources, and working to leverage data generated by industry to make decisions for their own missions, many of which are classified, is something that's really changing in the industry, and we're excited about. So having that baseline knowledge of how the government works, how the procurement process works, I think is something that you could take some time learning. It's not a prerequisite, but if you don't want to look super confused with question marks next to your head in your Zoom meetings, it's definitely something I would take some time learning, because I've been there, and it's complicated.
Yeah. I have a question for either of you two. Well, you say that you don't really need to be in the aerospace background to be in the aerospace industry, and that a lot of skills are good for it. What would you say is the most underutilized skill currently in the aerospace industry, either in general or at Slingshot?
Wonderful question.
Okay, Kishen, you want to take that one first? I want to see where you're going to go with this, and then the most underutilized skill is piggybacking off of your coworkers who are smarter than you.
I don't know
That's
about that
useful
one.
everywhere.
I think I definitely think like storytelling and education, right? Like I think being able to what Holly, what you do on a daily basis is really what's underutilized a lot, at least from like my experience traditionally. Like space has been like super exciting, but like the educational portion has been like super dry, and so being able to tell a cohesive story, and the impact that that story has on whether their customers or stakeholders, that's helping drive the commercialization of space. And so we definitely need a lot more of that in the space industry. And I think that's definitely an underutilized skill or skill set that's not being represented right now.
I totally agree. I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? Space is really hard. It is rocket science, but in order to get VC dollars, right, in order to be able to market your solutions to the industry, you have to be able to talk about it in terms that an average person can understand, which is actually really hard to do, because you want to show off the exquisiteness of your capabilities, but talking about it in a way that then the average person can understand, right? I think a really good example is, our recent press release. So the work that Kishen and I did, just to bring this back to our products, is fed the development of what is called Slingshot Beacon. So this is our collision avoidance coordination collaboration platform that now I've been working on with our software development team, the astrodynamicists, and our customers for about 1.5 years. So last week, shameless plug, we dropped some press that we have announced a free version of this tool for the entire industry to use. So we have advanced services, but in order to get the entire network on a single platform, you have to provide a service without a paywall, especially for universities that may not have the funding to leverage these tools at a cost, but also even those well-funded startups that are just beginning to launch satellites, they can't afford the high costs of collision avoidance tools today, even though they may be able to afford them in the future. So we want to bring all of those operators onto a single platform, but the way that we've talked about it in the industry is accessible to anyone. So our tool is a deep tech astrodynamics tool, right? We bring in positional information, whether it's ephemeris data, you can go Google that, you need to know that term if you want to get into the space traffic management realm, whether it's observations from the government, from our own telescope network, we bring it in, and then we do risk assessments based off of high fidelity space models. It's deep tech stuff, right? And then we also automate and allow operators to integrate this coordination tool into their workflow. But the way that we want to explain it to the rest of the world is this is an air traffic control tool, right? This is, in simple terms, a way to help operators coordinate, just as, air traffic control may do that for, the aerospace, or for, I'm losing it, for planes, or maritime. You want to make it accessible so that the industry understands at the end of the day, despite all of this, really complex physics-based capabilities going on under the hood, it's solving a simple problem. It's solving the fact that these extremely expensive and vital satellites that we rely on for GPS, that we rely on for, every time I want to watch the Great British Baking Show on Netflix. New episode was out last week, in case any of you guys didn't see it. Financial industries, our cell phones, everything, it's at its core, it's coordination problem. And so it's important for our company, especially as we want to, educate the industry as well, to put our solutions into simple terms. But that actually takes a lot of work. And so I think if you're looking at founding a company, leveraging something like the New Venture Challenge, professors there like Waverly Deutsch, that's why I was so blown away by getting to work with them for free, because their ability to hear your business case from a third-party perspective and be able to then distill it down to a simple narrative that any person walking on the street could understand, that I think is the key to your success. It's going to be the key to getting dollars in the door from investment funds. It's going to be your way to win government contracts by drafting them really well. And it's going to be a way to be able to communicate with any customer in the industry, regardless of their sophistication. So yeah, I think you're totally right, Kishen. I really piggybacked off that one, but yeah, being able to as Josh said, make a tapestry that is easily accessible to anyone as space is becoming, is essential for any startup that's just trying to get into the space.
Or maybe let me revise my metaphor. You want to present a constellation of of skills and so on. I really appreciate the way that really the two of you have highlighted the ways that of course, like the aerospace industry necessarily entails specialized knowledge and the terminology that comes along with it, but at the same time really does necessitate some of those skill sets of really dissolving complex problems and concepts into straightforward narratives for multiple parties to understand. Really, yeah. I feel like that's a big message that's coming out from the two of you. What now? I guess specifically with Slingshot, right, it relies a lot on space simulation and so on. What do you see as a particular challenge facing that project of space simulation, and where do you see potential solutions in that challenge?
Holly, I'll let you go first this time.
I knew you were gonna do that. Okay. There's so many places I could go with this. So I think there's two things. So just a little bit of an overview. We've got kind of two main tools, and then we have our telescope network. So Slingshot is our ultimate vision is to build a digital twin of the space environment. So if you're not familiar with the digital twin, you can imagine, on kind of a micro level, that's like having, CAD models for mission planning and making sure you can simulate the capabilities of your satellite before you go and launch it up there. We're doing something different. We're doing kind of a macro digital twin, which is basically to say, how can we get every single data source available to us, whether it's physical on the physical environment, that's satellites, that's space debris, or on the environmental, that's understanding space weather better. Where is there drag that's affecting the way that satellites maneuver, solar flares, right, that it could affect your satellites and cause them to have anomalies. Bringing in all of that data and really creating a sandbox so that operators can plan constellation design, the on-orbit servicing market, of which Astroscale is a leading organization, which is, getting, not only are we going to have satellites up that are providing services, but then we've got satellites helping other satellites, or satellites bringing down pieces of debris, right? So you've got a lot of, it's already complicated up there, right? But it's going to get much more complicated as you have, non-traditional maneuvers, as, dead satellites need to be tugged by another one, a piece of debris, you need to dock with it and pull it down. And so we need exquisite data, right? Especially for satellites that, need to dock with each other. You can't mess that up, right? You need to not only know where the satellites are, you need to know where the two objects, how they're turning, right? You need to understand the space weather conditions that they may be going through, because these are really high risk, high cost missions that you need exquisite data to be able to simulate for. So that, I would say, is the one of the biggest requirements for our success from a simulation and modeling perspective, is to be able to bring in as many exquisite data sources and aggregate them and also fuse them together in a way that provides a holistic and accurate picture of the space environment for a specific mission as well. You can imagine what kind of missions in the simulation domain the government may need. There's also, right, the on-orbit servicing. There's figuring out how to efficiently place your satellites in planes that reduce the overall collision risk. I mean, the use cases go on and on and on, but they all rely on the same thing, which is exquisite data. And so, where do you get that data from? Well, one is you can get that from the objects that are up there today, but getting data that is not sold on the marketplace, but is proprietary information of the satellite owner operators themselves, is not an easy task, but it's something that really relies on trust. And so, we've been successful in bringing in about data for over 70% of the satellites in LEO. And that's solely based off of the relationships that we've made. Like I said, some of which started out when I was a student at UChicago. So it's taken years to get the confidence and trust of these operators to pass us that information. The other piece is leveraging government data sources, right? Which has its own whole problems itself. And then the third one is developing your own. So that's why Kishen worked tirelessly for months to finalize our acquisition of Numerica, so that we can actually generate our own data, leveraging our optical telescope network capabilities to generate it ourselves. And then, of course, you've got to get all of that together, and then you've got to visualize it, which is its own piece. But none of the work that we're doing is valuable if we don't have quality data to start with. And that is a huge focus of the industry today, right? Generating data and understanding exactly what's going on up there is a huge focus that so many different companies like ourselves are working on, and are really going to be the foundational infrastructure that's going to let us do these really cool missions like on-orbit servicing that are going to just completely transform the industry and make space, cislunar activities, going to Mars, asteroid mining. I mean, all of that will be on the heels of these core missions that companies like Astroscale, ClearSpace are doing today, but they are still also needing quality data to be able to do their missions, and that's where we come in. And it's a hard problem, but the whole industry, the space traffic management and SSA industry is zeroed in on it, and there's a lot of work being done.
Kishen, I noticed you were nodding along. Is that data, that exquisite data that Holly is seeking, is that what you see also as the main, as a key challenge right now?
Yeah. And just maybe to give a little bit of context, right? Like just for our Beacon product and space traffic management, when we started Stellatus, which was the startup out of UChicago, the government was sending out 120,000 like conjunction data messages per day. These are like potential collisions between satellites and debris, or satellite on satellite, or sort of other things. Over a year and a half, a little over that, that number has grown to over 750,000 conjunction data messages a day, or even maybe more. And that is only with a 15 to 20% increase of the number of like satellites in orbit. So that risk is super exponential. And so we need to build data is the most important thing that's going to give us the situational awareness to inform the whole space community of what's happening in orbit. And second to that, I think building insights off of that with algorithms, right? Some of the things that we're doing now is taking that data, and a single person or owner operator can't manage 750,000 messages that are coming in, and there needs to be a way to distill that down to the most important with insights that are actionable. And so that's some of what we're doing, and building upon the numerous data sources that come in and provide actionable insights for space participants is probably the second challenge there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So now, faced with these challenges that you're working on, how might a prospective career pivoter get involved with the work that you're doing?
So we have open positions. If you're talking about us particularly, Kish and I both put our emails down, but we are always hiring. So Slingshot specifically, but really the industry at large, there's lots of opportunities. But I cannot emphasize enough, whether it's a space industry or whether it's another industry. I know, Ian, your space and biotech combined. Students are in a really awesome position. I was able as a student to send out emails to operators that are now customers, to high up individuals in the government and at NASA, and say, hey, I'm doing research. I'm a student here at UChicago. It is an awesome card to play. Your response rate is incredible when you're a student, right? Because I'll tell you, something changes when you graduate and you are now a salesperson. And so the difference from being able to talk to these industry leaders as a student where you're gathering information, they're much more willing to share their time with you. So take advantage of this, right? While you have access to your university email, shoot your shot, no joke, and send those emails out to all of the individuals that you've always wanted to talk to, because they're really likely to respond. I don't know if it's just strictly to the space industry, but part of me thinks sometimes that it is, because I'm always blown away by how generous people are with their time in this industry if you just ask them to hop on a Zoom or have a coffee. So make it easy. I always suggest, like, if you're going to send an introductory email, send some days and times, right, that you're available, so that these individuals can take as little time as possible to make a decision. Having to do two, responses back and forth, it'll cut down your response rate. But if you say, hey, I'm a UChicago student, I'm doing research, I'd love to talk to you, here's my availability with some hour blocks, and I'm happy to send a Zoom or do a call, you're going to get people to respond to you. And like those minutes, just 30 minutes with an industry expert, can make all the difference for you. At the end of the day, our success came down to Audrey Schaefer introducing us to someone at NASA, who introduced us to someone at a very large, who was a very large satellite operator, who introduced us to the CEO of Slingshot, Mel Strickland, that led to our acquisition, right? I can map it back all the way to Hacking for Defense. And all it was warm intros and people giving a little bit of time that led to really Kishen and I living the dream here. So don't hesitate to put yourself out there, because the worst thing that someone can say is no. And it's really unlikely to happen anyway, especially if you spam 30 people, you're going to get at least someone to respond. So that would be my biggest suggestion for anybody who's nervous to put themselves out there. Just start doing it. And then once you've been doing it for a while, it's like clockwork. And I send emails out a lot, and it used to make me sick to my stomach. Actually, when I was doing Hacking for Defense, I was so nervous talking to customers, and now I do it in my sleep. Even though, Dave, I know I got to get better at responding to your emails, and I feel bad about that to this day.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Kishen, what do you see? Yeah. Where do you see the opportunities in, in this sort of work at Astroscale? Astroscale, that's Dave's company. at Slingshot, and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, well, just to maybe add on a little bit to what Holly was saying, right? Like we both didn't, I mean, even though I had an aerospace background, like I never operationally had worked in operating a satellite before. And so like we both didn't understand or know anything about how satellite operations worked. And so just shooting out emails and talking to folks was like amazing. Like we got all of the ground truth, and people were very honest about, their challenges, what was going well and what wasn't going well. And that brought us to Slingshot. And at Slingshot, I mean, we're growing at an exponential rate. We're hiring across the board. Definitely, always need engineers, but also need those folks that we were talking about before to help us tell our story better, to position us in a good light, and also help us grow from multiple different angles, whether that be marketing, finance, corp dev, or business development.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We have about 5 minutes left, so I want to take this opportunity, though, actually to expand out to the UChicago Space Network. We have on the line here, we have Dave Fisher from Astroscale. I know he works also on decluttering space and so on. And we have Ian Mccann, who is at the University of North Dakota, specializing in astrobiology and technology. So what is next for the UChicago Space Network, and how can people get involved?
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Holly and Kishen. This has been a really terrific and engaging conversation today. So thank you very much for that. I just want to come back and underscore something that Kishen and Holly brought up, which is that in this new era of space, and it truly is a new era of space. For 60 years we've done space the same way. It is changing. It is commercializing. Small companies, startup companies are actually operating in space now. It's not just the regime of big nation states. The idea that you can pivot to a new career in space, or if you're a current student and looking to come into space, is really wide open. In the traditional aerospace sense, the traditional aerospace companies would recruit engineers, and they would go to engineering schools. There's such a thing as engineering schools. I know this might be a shock to you Chicago people. They hire from the same schools. It's one reason that I feel that the U of C, even though we're well represented in the space industry, we're not as well known in the space industry as more traditional engineering schools are. That's changing. And the idea that Maroons can thrive in the space industry is a real one, because one piece of advice I always give to you Chicago people is don't ever try to compete with a mechanical engineer for a mechanical engineering job, because you didn't get that education, you didn't get that training. What you bring is something different. You bring the ability to think critically and holistically and creatively, and to synthesize many different areas together. I mean, that's kind of what makes a maroon, regardless of whether that's the college or the law school, or Booth, or one of the professional schools, or one of the graduate divisions. And there's a growing need for that in the space industry, especially as you look at these exciting companies like Slingshot and what they're doing. 20 years ago, it would have been unthinkable that a private company is doing what Slingshot is doing. And now it's simply a matter of course. And everyone knows they're going to be hugely successful doing it because they're bringing together all of the right elements to make it happen. What's next for the Space Network then is more of this. It's more of this connecting. It's more of this realization that there are a lot of really exciting paths for people to take in the space industry. My experience, my whole career has been exactly in line with what Holly said, is reach out, talk to people. People are always happy to engage. People are very generous with their time in space. And I would just add to that, get on LinkedIn, reach out to your fellow Maroons. I always answer a call from a Maroon, period. And I think that is largely true for everybody in this community. So what's next for us is more connecting, more education, more learning, more activities like this, more ways to just sort of get together and grow as a community. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, for the more connecting and more networking, to be more specific for our future plans, there will be a second Space Talk like this featuring Harley Jackson of Off-World Biotech on Sunday, October 30th, 3 p.m. Central. So about same time here, but it's going to be on Sunday, October 30th, the day before Halloween. So we all hope to see you there. To hear about Harley Jackson and Off-World Biotech. They're doing some pretty interesting stuff of their own, and that's it. That's it for me. Thank you.
Yes, from what I understand, Off-World Biotech uses microgravity simulation to somehow in their work to engineer microbes.
Yes,
something like that.
Yes, they use rapid prototyping to genetically engineer microbes. To grow products such as insulin or other bioproducts in microgravity, both simulated and eventually real. But thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like I think what's like really also bringing these two installations of the series together is the fact that how much relies on simulation and the ways that we can use those for the real world in the outer space, and conversely the ways that what we observe in outer space can then further like inform how we work here in the simulations that we create.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday afternoon and really giving us a glimpse into this exciting field.
No problem. It was a pleasure. I'm still in Chicago, so I'm living here in Pilsen in my 2-bedroom apartment with my 4 cats. So if anybody ever wants to meet up for coffee here, I am very close to the university and would love to connect. But thank you guys. This was fun.
And see, to your point, Zoom takes the geography and travel out of the equation, because I'm here in Chicago too, but I know Ian and Dave are all calling in from other time zones.
Well, yeah, and you know what? We'll drop with this. Kishen and I may have done all this together. We've never met in person. So you really can do it. You can do it all.
That is awesome. I never realized that. That is a really great story.
Yeah, powered by Zoom, one could say.
I love that. Thank you, everyone, and take care. You're going to see a survey on your screen when you leave the webinar, when the webinar closes. Please let us know how you thought this goes. We're interested to hear from you about what you want to hear about and how we can really bring these space talks to you. All right, thank you. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone.